Yo, it's your boy Ian Abinoha, aka Ian Abi Knows What's Up, aka DJ Pineapple, aka What's Up. um, I haven't really done a lot of this like video blogging, being able to talk to the camera, look to the camera, see what's going on, be open, be vulnerable. But I realized being on this trip, I am thinking about being able to walk through various challenges that I might be interfacing every day, every minute, every second. Sometimes thinking about being on this trip, setting a goal of this idea of a solo trip, setting a goal around being able to improve myself, whatever that may mean. And as I go through every day, and I've been very blessed. I've been thankful to have the opportunity and the funds and the resources and the time and the support to be able to, just go through, take 2 weeks off, go to Korea, have friends in Korea. Thank you again for all the support. But keeping in mind that no matter what happens, the older I get, the more I realize you start to shed a lot of these perceptions that you have of the world. And I would say they're like layers that you build up over time, because as we go through, childhood or adolescent years, teenage years, college years, early adulthood, matured adulthood, if you will, a lot of it is just finding some sort of purpose or some sort of belonging, and you were a lot more open to just try potentially. Not everyone, but in my case, I just was absorbed by the happiness that you get from the perception of being around others, by being social, by the perceived happiness that is displayed on our social media feeds. And so oftentimes we look to that and we allow that to be the narrative every day. And what happens is, at least for me, you just stopped thinking about what I truly needed to work on. You just kept building these layers and these layers and these layers and these layers. And eventually, as you get older, you start to get smarter. So all of a sudden, you start to shed these layers. I may not want to be drinking every night. I may, want to do activities at a certain point in time. I may not always want to go clubbing, or I may want to try to venture out about doing more specific things rather than random things. And so as you're shedding, you realize that what used to make you happy with a lot of these layers wasn't really serving anything to truly heal a lot of the insecurities that I've had growing up. And so I have really found that with this trip, that internally I am always going to be faced with anxiety and insecurities. It's not going to go away. Obviously, as some of you might know or can see as well, I've grown up with eczema over 30 years now. Something that I've had as an infant potentially, or as a toddler, and bless my mother for helping me throughout the years. And obviously, as I became more independent, trying to take care of myself has been hard. Wanting to be normal and to be a part of something was the main reason for me to do a lot of these activities over the years, how I built a perception of layers over time that made me think that happiness would be derived from those things. And then obviously when those things left and I was left to myself, it was hard to look in the mirror. Um, and this past July, it was really one of those moments where I looked at myself in the mirror and I just was not, to be honest, very attractive. And people will debate what attractive means, and I know we're going for more body positivity, and I'm thankful for that, but let's be 100% honest in terms of a majority of the world and what's dictated to us by the media, our social feeds, our friends, our family, strangers, people on the street that you don't even see. The idea of building happiness has a perceived nature from a surface layer, which is the attractiveness that some people may feel. And it's all relative, you know. Even the most beautiful people, quote unquote, dictate that they don't feel as pretty or beautiful or handsome. And it's all relative because of the people that they're around, right? It can be quite subjective, and I know that that's the thing that becomes hard to digest, because how can anyone subject themselves to another person's interpretation of beauty? We just don't know. And I know that having to focus on my insecurities, which is primarily around my skin, which the reason why it will always be here with me is because my skin is something that I see every day. So it's a constant reminder that I will be insecure and I will be anxious. You know, it's a constant reminder that if I could see myself, I'm pretty sure people can see it too. And I've had reassuring messages and comments from amazing people in my life that, you know, talk about how good I look and, you know, I shouldn't worry about those things. But when you start to observe the world like I have, and, you know, everyone can observe it differently, but I choose to observe it from the background. And what I've started to see are patterns, and these patterns aren't indicative of, you know, a specific behavior or things like that, but, you know, no one wants to deny that they've been consumed and have subscribed to patterns that as a society we say could be selfish or could be unkind, if you will. But I follow in those patterns too, right? Like, we go into these dating apps and you're constantly looking for the best looking person, the person you're most attracted to. And the unfortunate thing is, like, it's really hard to get any deeper. And it becomes addictive for us to search for the perfect match. You know, and people talk about, oh, you know, just keep dating, keep dating, keep dating, keep dating. And I believe them. It's just, we have to think about the fact that as individuals, no one put a time block on these things. It's all theoretical that some groups of people agreed upon, right? To get married at a certain time, to have kids at a certain time, to have a house at a certain time. Sure, that could be successful for most, but I think for individuals like myself who have never felt normal, it's time for us to make sure that we understand what normal means for us, and that we are normal, actually. We just are living a life that's different from most, and that's fine. No one said that my normal has to be the same as the normal of my family, my friends, strangers, coworkers, etc. And so being back on this solo trip, being reminded to understand that most times you need to reset. And I'm not recommending that everyone has to do a solo trip. You know, I understand that it can be quite big of a leap for most to just embark on things by themselves. So everything that I say, take it with a grain of salt. Everything that I view and have observed has been through my filter. And one of the things that I've noticed is on these solo trips, I'm able to have more of an internal dialogue. I'm able to actually prioritize myself. And it's a hard concept giving myself time, right? Like I'm used to being able to hide through my kindness, these actions that I provide to others. And it forces me to not have to have the massive dialogue to myself of, can I face my insecurities and my anxiety? And we'll see. I'm writing this book hopefully at some point in time in my life. I do want to talk about time. And it's funny, as I'm about to build the deck and the slides for my talk about how to be best friends with time, I've only internalized how to communicate it to myself. And so this is going to be a big challenge. I know that how you communicate and how you're able to narrate a story, whether it's mine or someone else's, can have a strong impact on others. And it's not one where I would like to share a story to influence. However, it's more around providing a story and a narrative so that we can just be more aware. And that's kind of why people write books, right? Like, that's why you have your imaginations taken through different narratives, environments. That's why you have these biopics and biographies to help us understand the stories of others. And it's not necessarily to be the sole purpose that we have to follow and influence. I just don't think that we should have so much conviction to shape other people's lives, because we really need to make sure that we understand how to shape ours. And oftentimes I feel like a lot of actions are created through insecurity and anxiety. I mean, I can definitely admit to that, right? Having very, very, very bad negative thoughts and depression because I was scared of losing people and the actions that I took were built out of jealousy. And so I disguised it through kindness. But at the end of the day, I just never felt like myself, and it was very temporary. And so, we talk about, like, how do you go about day after day knowing that we want to make the most out of life. And I was recently watching this YouTube talk around the finite game versus infinite game with Simon Sinek. And funnily enough, sure, like, we should play the infinite game. The crazy part, I think, that will be hard for most people to accept is life's not infinite. And so how do we reframe? And I think that's the thing that I've started to utilize the most in my life is, given what's brought to you, given where you are in the world, in the environment, in this point in time, we see the world with what we've been taught and told. However, not to say that you have to change it, but can you reframe it? Can you just find another point of view in which it relates to you most? And the idea of reframing really started to resonate with me back at Art Center when I was basically taking this class called Creative Strategies with Fridolin Bazart. And it was a really great class. It really taught you to find authenticity in your ideas and in your creativity and to really play upon it. And of course, over time, you could refine and iterate to make it perfect. But the essence and the soul, right, is where you really need to focus on, the simplicity of that narrative. And speaking about soul, like, I've started to connect that where I want to be in with this world and with what I do in what I call normal in my life is to be surrounded by soul. the authenticity, the simplicity, the purity in the narrative of the people and the situations around me. And a lot of that just helps me feel more comfortable, and then I could feel more like I can handle my insecurities, anxiety of eczema in being in my own skin. But yeah, so this was a good talk. Not sure where I was going with it, but I think it was just a good talk in general. It feels good to just talk. And maybe this could launch into its own podcast or a video diary of my thoughts that I could share so that others don't feel alone. Again, this isn't about influence. This is just about exposure and awareness. This is about the practice of seeing myself, listening to myself, and overall just being myself. Because I truly want to, within this infinite game, if you will, with whatever time I have on this earth, who knows, that I can accept myself every single day, every single minute, every single second. And it takes time. I understand that there's a lot of people, especially those who are still finding their identity. But don't deny the patterns once you see how you embark around every situation, area, and environment. People sometimes go into denial that, like, oh, I'm not this person. And that's true. Maybe you're not that person. But don't fight it so much. Maybe it's not that you're this person who has negative qualities, because one might say my eczema is a negative quality. One might say that my kindness is a little too stubborn, right? So there's another way to just reframe it. And so just keep that in mind. Reframe is an interesting key. And that's something that maybe I could talk about later on. The talk that I plan to give with BCG Digital Ventures around making time your best friend is just a reframing of your relationship with time. It's a reframing of how we relate to time. And so that's maybe the key message. How to reframe. Well, that's me for now. Solid 17 minutes of just talking. This is Ian Abinoha, aka Ian Abi Knows What's Up, aka Pineapple, signing off.
My love cannot be measured. My love can only be treasured.